Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Steve Dennis from Spike95. I'm going to take you through page speed, how we transform our e-commerce site. I've got Jake Frew here with me as well. Do you want to say hi, Jake? Quickly?
Hey guys, nice to meet you all. Hope everyone's all good.
Good stuff. So Jake's going to pop in. We're going to sort of tag team between us and take you through some of this. Couple of quick notes. There's room for questions, so we got the Q&A session there all the way through. If you have a burning question or something's not clear, please put it in there. We'll probably park all of those, take those right at the end. There will be a recording available of this for later on, and we're referring to some tools and some links and things like that. So again, don't worry too much about scribbling those down. We'll send all of those links out and slides and things like that later on, so you can sit back, relax, listen to us. We haven't got many PowerPoint slides because I know you don't like death by PowerPoint. We'll get through a little bit of stuff explaining the topic, and then Jake's going to hop into some demos, and I'm going to do one of the demos as well and actually show you how we measure this and what this really means, because it's always a bit more dynamic to do it that way. So really quickly, just about us, we're Spike95. We are experts in retail reliability engineering. So what that's basically mean is we specialize in helping retailers as well as other companies to implement major change in particularly the e-commerce side, but anything that's to do with sort of the customer journey, all the way right through to all the fulfillment and everything else. Good retail industry expertise in a number of companies. Where we've done some key replatforming and Black Friday type projects with some of the big names. Lots of skills and expertise. We have a huge pedigree. I think we added up our years the other day, and we were into 60 to 70 between the three of us in terms of how much QA, non-functional testing, automation we have between us. A lot of stuff in the e-commerce space, and we're seeing particularly things like replatforming around Salesforce and some of those other platforms being key things that are going on at the moment. Everyone got through 2020 and wants to hit 2021 well. And what we do really as well is we bring order to that chaos. So these projects are big and complex and potentially quite difficult. We have an approach, we have the assets, we have the thinking that will allow us to rattle through all of that as well. And also we work very well with third parties, with system integrators who are often doing a lot of the development, but we bring the other piece that sort of helps customers to land the big behemoth that is this retail, the replatforming project. So 5 things we wanted to give you today to take away. It's always good to have something at the end. So we're going to have a look at some of the facts behind page speed and what that means for conversion. We'll have a look at some of the changes you can make to improve the performance of your retail website. Some of the quick wins, some of the things to look at, because again, it could be a myriad of things that you need to solve there, but some of the things that you can do that will help you rise up the rankings and also actually implement some of that good practice. And we're going to do it as a live look as well. So rather than just put a load of PowerPoint slides up, as I said, we'll get in and look at some of the tools and show you how to do it. You'll be able to have a go at that at the end. You can take it away and crack on with that as well. And then what we'll also look at is, as well as that individual snapshot, how you can make that part of your BAU change process. So,
sorry, Steve, could I just jump in?
Embed it in the whole life cycle. You can.
Yeah, just need to present your slides, mate.
I have.
I think it went away.
Let me try it again. Has it gone away? There you go. This is why we have people there. I will
just testing everyone's awake.
You're testing everyone's awake.
Yeah.
Is that why the Q&A has gone mad? Let me try it again. Right. Prompt me again.
All that hard work on them, all that hard work on those original slides, eh? I
tell you, there's my beautiful slide. I was talking about the 5 takeaways. Again, you'll see this later on, and we'll send the deck out. Is that all displaying okay?
Perfect, mate. Perfect.
Thank you very much. There you go. Embarrassing moment over. Jake, over to you.
That's a perfect segue there, really, Steve. Cool. Okay. So why is page speed important? There's so many stats out there about, small increments in page speed can really increase your conversion rates, increase your revenue, really satisfy your customers. So I mean, on this page here, Walmart did a study a few years back, and they're saying 7% conversion rate loss every second your site takes after 3 seconds. So it's, there's big gains to be made. Do you want to move to the next slide, Steve? Cool. Okay. So what we're going to cover today is primarily around Google Core Web Vitals. I'm not sure whether everyone's heard of this. There'll be a few people out there, I'm sure. But this is something that's coming into frame in May 2021, well, a few months' time. This is not new. LCP, FID, CLS, these measures are what Google have been kind of tracking for a while, but they haven't, as far as we're aware, they haven't been kind of making that a factor of your page speed ranking in Google search. So come that date, you might suddenly be higher than your competitors or lower. So it's something really needs to kind of take focus off really. So the 3 areas like LCP, FID, and CLS. Google have publicized what good looks like for each of these, and Steve will later on kind of delve into this bit more detail and show you kind of what optimizations can be made. Next slide, please, Steve. Okay, so around this time as well, around May time, we're not sure exactly for sure, but there's kind of rumor out there that Google are going to start kind of labeling within the search results whether your site is a good experience for your customers. And obviously page speed now is a big factor of that really. So I mean, Google have really kind of pushing this really, they really want to make the website better, web better for everyone. So we need to everyone needs to up the game really. Next slide, please, Steve. In fact, next
I was going to say just on that one as well. We've got it is me. I was just going to add to that as well that at the moment only 15% of sites would actually pass what they think is a core web vitals assessment. So there seems to be an awful lot of work to do on that one. Just quickly, whoops, skipped ahead. So moving on that. So thinking about this, I can see some familiar names and friends of Spike on there as well that are very familiar with performance testing and particularly on the load testing side. So page speed itself, what we're talking about is it's often termed user experience, performance, UX, client-side performance, front-end performance, has some different terms there. But whatever term you use, it's really about making sure that the customer is at the heart of the testing that we do. Traditionally, when we've done a lot of performance testing or load testing particularly, we've been doing virtual users. We've been very much focusing on the server side because that's always the easy way to load the system up. And we've almost discounted a lot of the front end deliberately. Now, I know latterly some of the tools have changed and they are starting to focus on that a little bit, but broadly, it's been very much server side. What we're seeing now is some of the tactics we put in load testing to divert the load, caching and externalizing some of the content is actually causing problems from a UX point of view. And also, there's a lot of things that are now happening client side. So everyone's got a load of things like JavaScript that is launching that doesn't get tested in your traditional load testing, but is absolutely critical to the UX. So that's why in some of those stats that we're going to deep dive into, we'll see that it does take account of some of the things that we do in load testing, but it's adding in these extra measures that we're looking at. And what we're looking at is when we're asking how fast, it is more than just the load speed and the paint metrics. It's about interactivity, it's about user experience, and extends beyond that world that we've done. And then what I'd say typically, those of you familiar with a sort of traditional life cycle, I've got a bit of a figure of 8 going on here, but from planning, coding, and the engineering side, right through to what happens in production. Traditionally, some of the page speed monitoring and some of the tools we're going to look at would certainly look around the production space and understanding what's happening in terms of our real users. And that's great. It gives us a very good picture. What we're also really keen on is looking back at start left activities, back at the coding level, and looking at building a lot of this in. Very simply getting your devs to do this and then perhaps building on that to fire it into your pipeline. We'll have a look at some of the ways we can do that as well, because that's really where the problems start. The production side is also very important because, as I said, we've got those external tools and personalization, and you've got marketing campaigns that your business is signing up to. So we need to account for all of those as well and find the balance between both of them. And then Jake, I think I'm back to you to dig a bit deeper on core web vitals. Or do you want me to do this one?
I thought this was your slide actually, mate.
Oh, look at this. This didn't happen in rehearsals. I can dig into this. So
I'll jump in if
largest contentful paint. No, good man. So what we're looking at LCP, if you think about the viewport of your screen that comes up, so what you can see on there, a web page is potentially a big thing. You scroll down and lots of different things happen. But the largest contentful paint, LCP, is measuring when the largest content element becomes visible to the user. So it's giving an indication of when the main content of the page has finished rendering on the screen. But obviously there's a lot of other stuff goes in the background. Poor LCP could be things like some of those traditional performance testing areas, slow server response times, but quite often those slow times are often things that are render blocking, JavaScript, style sheets, all of those other elements that need to be loaded on the page. So as I say, it's a good measure, and it's one of the 3 that gets pushed into Core Web Vitals. The other 2, so first input delay. So again, thinking about a user going onto a screen, what we're looking at is the time from when they first interact with the screen, with something like a mouse click, a screen tap, a keyboard press, to the time that the browser can actually do that. So again, if you've got something blocking loading in the background that's stopping the user from actually, they've done an interaction and they don't get a response back, then that is an indicator of poor user experience. And that's what first input delay is giving us. It's a good measure, but it does have some challenges in measuring that outside of production. In the lab environment, we don't have that interaction going on unless you've physically got something actually interacting and pressing that. It's very hard to simulate. So we'll see later on, we use a slightly different measure in the lab environment, but actually it's giving us exactly the same thing. And then the final one we've got is CLS, cumulative layout shift. What that is all about is, I often liken this to those of you who've ever used remember back to the days of 56K modems when we were loading pages, and it's very blocky about how it comes down. It takes a long time to render. So the screen's there, and then a little bit later, the image arrives and the screen shifts. That's what cumulative layout shift is doing. So it's obviously a lot quicker now that we've got much faster connections on mobile and desktop, but it's the same sort of concept that a button is there and then all of a sudden it moves and you can't click in the same thing. That's poor UX. If a user's about to click on the buy button while they're waiting for something and the buy button moves elsewhere, that's not really what you're going to do, and that tends to annoy people. So that's those 3 measures that we look at in terms of the Core Web Vitals. As I say, they're giving us a good thing about that interactivity on top of the load speed. There's another measure that we're going to look at next. So Core Web Vitals is what Google use a lot, and it's also been extended. So I will pass the baton back to Jake, and we'll talk about contrasting that to what we call a lighthouse score.
Cool, thanks, Steve. Okay, so Lighthouse, again, a lot of you might have heard of this. What we've shown here is kind of their scorecard. This is kind of version 6, version 7, or version 7 just came out. So within Lighthouse, you get a kind of overall kind of aggregate score of how your page is perceived. And that is basically made up of kind of 6 different measures here. And 3 of those are Core Web Vitals. So you've got the LCP, that Steve's already mentioned. You've got the CLS. But then you haven't got obviously the FID, because like Steve said, we can't measure that in a lab environment. So for that, we've got total blocking time. So you'll see on this particular example, the site, well, the page scored 44 for the Lighthouse score. It was good for FCP, and it was bad for total blocking time and LCP. Okay, if you want to move on to the next, well, in fact, we haven't got a slide. I'll give you. It's going to be a demo now. So let me.
I was just going to quickly say that as well. So what you can also see there, there's a weighting on the score across to the side there. So each of the scores. This is actually a little utility that you can use to plug things in as well. We'll send one of the links out. But the scores are actually weighted in terms of the aggregate. So it puts more importance on, say, LCP and total blocking time, and slightly less on the others. And that's what this picture across to the right is showing. So you can see that how far through you are is how important they are in terms of the whole score as well. So it's quite a nice little thing. And some of the demos we're going to do when Jake's going to, are you going to share your desktop and then we'll hop across?
I can do, yeah. I forgot to actually mention that Lighthouse can be run kind of 4 different ways, really. It can be run through PageSpeed Insights, which is a website, which I'm going to do a demo of. It can be run within Chrome DevTools, when you press F12 and get dirty, really. It can run the command line, and also as a node module, and it can obviously be, via those methods, be integrated into your pipelines. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick demo now of PageSpeed Insights, where Lighthouse fits into that. Also, I do an F12 into Chrome DevTools, and then I'll hand back over to Steve, and he's going to talk about Rigger, which is one of the commercial offerings out there. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone
Okay,
can.
you're up.
Yep, that's it. Cool. Okay, so for this quick demo, I'm going to analyze the homepage of Debenhams. Yeah, the reason we chose that was obviously those guys being bought out by Boohoo now. We didn't want to kind of offend anyone per se that might be on this call. So kind of these are good game really for us. Okay, so just put the URL in there, straightforward, quick click analyze, and this should take about 5 seconds or so. This is where it goes horribly wrong on a demo. And what this does is this is looking at kind of data out there in the field, and also kind of the initial run we did then was kind of there and then. Okay, results come back. So you can see here your mobile and desktop. So you've got factors for both. So an overall score here was 23 for Debenhams, which is obviously bad. So the top section, you've got field data. So this is obviously cache data that's in the Chrome user experience report. So this is kind of data that's flagged all the way to for anyone in Chrome. Well, anyone that opts into Chrome browsers, it goes into the big data really there. So obviously that's not real time, but it's showing the 3 of the core Web Vitals metrics there: LCP, CLS, and FID. So there you go. You've got FID because this is real data. But then the run we've just done is kind of here in the lab data section. You've total blocking time, which is obviously the inverse of FID, CLS, and LCP. And in addition to that, with Lighthouse, because this is actually Lighthouse within kind of PageSpeed Insights, you also get the FTP, you get the speed index score, and you get time to interactive. So just scroll down a little bit, you'll see a little film strip shown as that page loaded. And later on, we're going to kind of dig into that a bit more so in the commercial offering of Rigor. You'll also see here various kind of savings and opportunities that can be made. So effectively straightforward, anyone can use this. It's out of the box, it's free. Run this, give it to your devs, and then obviously iterate upon this. Okay, right, so now I'll show you Chrome DevTools. Okay, again, using Debenhams as an example. Okay, so Chrome DevTools, very powerful, lots there. Obviously, you see across the top loads of different tabs. The one we're going to look at now is performance. So I'm going to basically profile, refresh this page and profile the what comes back. Again, it should only take 5 seconds or so. Okay, cool. Okay, so what you'll see now within this kind of this picture, you've got a kind of summary view of Web Vitals, and it's showing FTP to just over 200 milliseconds. Also at the same time, LCP, which is obviously one of the core Web Vitals, 212 milliseconds. And you'll see as well, every time there's been a layout shift, so there's one there, there's one there. And then if you delve down a bit further, you'll see for this LCP, if you click on it, it was actually that image there. So that image, there's a size at the bottom, and that's what took 200 milliseconds. And when you look at layout shifts as well, so every time I click that, you'll see on the top left, there's a banner that's moving, and there's another one there. I think that was it, just 2 layout shifts. And what you see there, the cumulative score, 0.4, which is not great. And this is also shows you total blocking time at the bottom. It's 520 milliseconds. So yeah, there's plenty there. I mean, this is kind of, it gets quite deep really. This is for your devs really to look at. Cool. And also, I mean, you can run obviously Lighthouse scores within Chrome DevTools as well. So this, and if you click on that link there, Lighthouse, and you can run. And it's worth saying, Lighthouse is not just performance as well. It's best practices, accessibility, SEO. But obviously, part of this kind of webinar really is just talking about performance. Okie dokie. Right, I'll hand you over to Steve now, and he's going to talk to you about Rigor, the commercial offering out there.
Good stuff. So if you flick into that, so as Jake said, that was sort of a deep dive for the sort of things your devs could be looking at around the bits that influence them, certainly around the coding practices and the things that they're in control of. One of the good things you can do there as well is you can actually build that into your CI pipeline and start firing that up. You can actually fail your builds on poor lighthouse scores and things like that, which is a really good thing that they could be thinking about. But the sort of thing we're looking at here as well is that you could build up that certainly in your test environments and then start dashboarding, things like that. You'd have to put the effort in to do that. It's not a massive amount, but it could be done. The advantage of some of the commercial tools that are out there, and Rigor is just one of them, there are others, of course, is that they do that kind of out of the box. So they bring the dashboarding and they bring some of that synthetic scripting and execution for you. So it's a bit less work. So a trade-off depending on what you want to do. The idea of something like Rigor as well is it's probably easier to extend it into the production environment than perhaps some of the dev tools. And it's a bit more user-friendly potentially for different non-technical audiences as well. What we've crafted up here just as a bit of a demo is we've looked at the home pages only across a number of retailers in production. In reality, if you were doing this yourself, you may decide to do your own dashboard based on multiple pages. You might have your product listing pages, product detail pages, checkout process, things like that you want to bring in there. So there's certainly a lot of things you can do on that one. But for ease of this, we've pulled in the home pages. We've sorted them by monthly score there. So we're seeing that there's some are better than others. I'm not going to pick on anybody particularly, but it's just giving you an idea.
Pick on Debenhams.
So I'll pick on Debenhams because they're going to be obviously integrated into Boohoo when that moves. So what we're seeing there as well is, we've got those 3 metrics that are in the core web vitals. The reason the red, amber, green here is we put the thresholds on there as well. The benefit behind this, and we'll show as we drill into it, is that whereas the initial lighthouse score is only doing one particular channel, so one viewport usually, and I know we've got mobile and desktop, but it tends to throttle the connection and everything else. Using a tool like this, we've got the ability to actually almost create our own benchmarks outside of those measures as well. And we can have desktop and mobile, we can have the US versus the UK. So, we can start to bring a bit more granularity in there as well. But you can see here that, actually on LCP scores, Debenhams are doing okay on this particular test that we ran just on their homepage. They've got some blocking issues, which I think we saw earlier, and we saw the CLS one. The scores are slightly different because of timing points and aggregates and everything else. But it's, what you need to be looking at here is not the individual points. You really need to be looking at the trend, because you will spike up and spike down. If we scroll across to the right there as well, we've actually brought in a number of other stats on there. We've got uptime. I don't know if you've got the other stats across to the right-hand side, Jake.
You see that? Is that okay?
You're like my Debbie. You're like my Debbie McGee here, doing everything I tell you to do.
You wish.
Fantastic. So, so there we've got those other ones as well. Now these are in grey because we haven't set the thresholds on there. We wanted to focus on core web vitals, but you could easily go in there and apply those as well. So that's basically what that one's looking at. Let's go back and drill into the Debenhams one then, if we're going to use them as our case study. Well, there's one we prepared earlier. Fantastic.
Yeah, nice.
So what we've actually done, this shows the simulation that we set up. So again, just on the homepage. And we set up a synthetic script inside Rigor. It does it all for you. Every 30 minutes, we're polling that site and we're getting a range of timing. And you can see that it kind of floats up and down a little bit in terms of those dots. But broadly speaking, it's hovering around the 4 to 5 second mark. It's had a couple of worse ones and some better ones. But thinking about what else is going on, this is production. There will be real customers on there, so it is going to flex up and down a little bit at the time as well. If we click on one of the dots to the right-hand side there, so this will drill into it again. And this is going to give us a view a little bit like Jake showed you in the Chrome developer tools. So again, we've got those key metrics displayed there. We could add more to that screen if we want to do that, but it's showing you the film strip. And where this is a little bit easier to read, I find, is that, so that will hide that. Let's have a look at the film strip. So on the film strip, you can see how it's actually building. And again, that's the sort of thing that's going on. So the site loads, obviously the shell then loads, and then the images fly in. Now, it's not my 56K modem example I gave earlier because it's happening in milliseconds, but it's still quite a bit of time before the key thing happens. So the first contentful paint, the first main piece comes in, the largest element, so they're loading, in this case, their background by the looks of it. And then across to the T, we've got the total blocking time. So again, there's something in that time gap there, sort of, another half a second where you can't do anything as a user. And then a number of other things that go on right the way through. And a lot of things, you can see it kind of building up. There's a cookie box will pop up at some point. They always happen. They then emphasize their sale thing around 4.8 seconds, but actually the interactive time, it's taking a long time before as a user, you could do something. Now, 3 seconds may not seem like much, but obviously if that's an additional 3 to 5 or more seconds every single page, eventually that's going to annoy your users, and it's not really a great user experience. I think also there are certain demographics, shall we say, in the country, the point and click generation, they want fast response time, and they haven't got the patience to do that. So if you're not able to give them that response ASAP, then it's really they're going to struggle with that as well. If we scroll down a little bit further, there's an optimization section there, which we're not going to touch this time in Rigor. But what it actually allows you to do is say some of those images and some of the things there, you can go in there and it will suggest those best practices. It talks about where you can amend images to have lossless savings, because a lot of images, if you've got a high resolution image, the human eye won't really see that on a certain viewport anyway. So why don't you actually reduce the resolution? No difference to the user experience, but you'll get a much better response time there. And again, as Jake showed there, we've got the waterfall, so we can actually look at that a little bit further. Now, again, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the sort of things I'd be looking at here again is looking at some of the ideas on the left, just looking at where have I got JavaScript, where have I got big items. These guys haven't got any massive items or big images, so they're fairly well optimized on that. But if you just look at the whole thing, there's a lot going on to build this site. And do they really need? So there's a get vendor. Just scroll up a little bit. I saw a get vendor JavaScript there was about 400K. Is that so that's coming in from Mobify, which is some of their external stuff. Does that need to be loaded on the desktop site? Yes and no. Some of the other bits of JavaScript there, 1 meg bit of JavaScript, it's been compressed, but your browser still needs to expand that back out and process it. So that sort of stuff is going to cause blocking. So there's lots of efficiency that we'd be looking for. And then I think if we go back to the top, Jake, there was one where we looked at earlier around the domain analysis.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
modern websites as well are not from one thing. So you will have debenhams.com, but they'll also have their CDN internally or externally. So they've got their media site. But if we look at this as well, one of the things that we do in modern retail websites is personalize and really, enhance that and make it much more exciting, give recommendations. And that's all great. From an end user point of view, you're getting the product you want. It might be a bit scary if you've been somewhere else searching for Adidas trainers and they show you Adidas trainers as soon as you log in. That spooky moment, are they listening? Well, yes, they are. They're using clever technology to track what you're doing and give you that search. It's what it's all about. But the other thing that you've got there is, that brings some great functionality, but it comes at a cost. And if you've got someone like Monetate that we've said there, a personalization engine, again, I don't know the ins and outs of the relationship and the license and where this is done. So this is nothing against Monetate as a company. A lot of retailers use them and get great success. I'm literally using it as an example. But that time there is something that potentially is outside of your control, because you are giving the functionality when you're buying in that functionality from a third-party supplier. If you don't have the right performance criteria, if you haven't tested it, if you don't pre-warn them of campaigns that you're doing, then potentially you're going to get a poor performance there. And what we're really looking at, this allows us to just kind of look at it and go, well, A, do we need all this stuff in the first place? That's kind of could we rationalize it and just bring it back down a little bit? But where we have these relationships that perhaps the business have brought in, not us in technology, there's a conversation with the business to kind of go, well, how can we optimize this? And can you let us know when you're going to be doing things? Can we do some additional testing? And that's really where this comes into its own, because these things can grow and these things can become a monster because somebody in the business signs you up to a tagging engine or adds in an external service. And they're doing it for the right reasons because they want to drive customers to the site, but it causes a technology problem. So we just need to make sure we're aware of it, and then we can start talking to people as well. And that was really the feeling for the sort of stuff that Rigger can give us. I think that's probably it in terms of, do we want to talk about anything else, Jake, on that one?
No, I think you covered it well, other than obviously at the bottom of this report, yeah, it just shows you how many requests that were made and the size. That's about it, really.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'll hand back over to you, and Steve.
Good stuff. Let me just click back to the sharing. So, really that was, I'm not showing the right thing. Bear with me 2 seconds.
Yeah, so
can you see my PowerPoint again? Back to the demo. There you go. Came back to where we began.
Lovely.
It's like Billy Connolly, isn't it? He goes off on a story and then comes back to the same position, not magic. So, we just use PowerPoint to drive it. So 5 things we took you through today, everybody, was, hopefully we've demonstrated some of the reasons why page speed is absolutely critical, and the complexity behind it. We're looking for those simple changes where hopefully they will give us a measurable impact. We think there are quick wins you can do. If you do that, that's going to potentially move you ahead of your competitors. Obviously, it's a bit of a moving target because as you move things, they're going to be optimizing as well. But the tools are there from a dev point of view, and from the commercial side, you can really get into that. You can get started on this today. We'll send out the links later on, and by all means have a crack at that. In fact, if you want to look at the Lighthouse stuff, just go to web.dev, nice simple URL, and start running some stuff from there as well. And then longer term, embedding this in your BAU change toolkit, the little Swiss Army knife that we've got there, actually make it part of that. Don't do it as a one-off and forget about it. You need to build it in there. Get the devs doing this every sprint. If you get more advanced and more confident in it, start failing your builds, and actually make it a criteria, because that's also then on the way to creating a bit of a performance culture and a real performance ownership thing there as well. Also, what I'd say as well is, don't try and just own that in tech. This is not just a technology problem or a technology issue. It involves the business, and you need to understand what they're doing, because that's going to be where you thought your non-functional requirements were coming from and what the new ones are. There's a different pool that you need to go fishing in to make sure that you're absolutely testing everything. So in terms of what we're covering today, that was it. Hopefully we've finished in a reasonable time, just after half an hour, so we've not taken up too much of your time. We are absolutely open to questions on this topic. So we can, if you have something is burning or something that wasn't clear in that, by all means, pop it in the Q&A and we'll try and answer those. I don't know if Daryl, if you've got a handle of the Q&A section, you can bring that up and tell us what's on there. But if anybody wants that, put your hand up and we can always open the mic up and you can ask it live, put us on the spot a little bit if you want to do that as well. Famous last words, that one, of course, isn't it? Have we got any hands? Who's brave enough to put their hand up and ask a question, or anything in the Q&A, Daryl? You had a couple from earlier, I think, that were sent in.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying. Sorry, let's just get something closed.
Yeah, no, we did have a question.
Yeah, so we did. I've got it here. So it says, is measuring page speed in production using ROM tooling enough? And that came from Anonymous, which always happens.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on this one earlier. Yeah, measuring in production only is too late, isn't it? You need to be shifting left or start left, as we like to say. So you could be using the likes of Lighthouse tooling, which is obviously synthetic tooling. Running that as early as possible in your dev. Every single change, failing builds. That's definitely what you need to do.
Good stuff. There's another one. So Tommy's popped a question in there. Thanks, Tommy. Not really a question, but in our experience, the field data in page speed insights is more valuable than the lab data. Any thoughts on that, Jake? I'm going to put you on the spot with the difficult questions.
Yeah, no. I mean, end of the day, when you're simulating in a lab, it's kind of, you're looking at regression, aren't you? Right? It doesn't matter what figure to put certain extent is given you. You're making sure every kind of build, you're not getting worse than that figure. But ultimately, when you're in production, there's so many different, variations, different devices, different network speeds. So yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, the production data is the gold really, but you've got to go through dev to get to prod, and you need that kind of continuous environment. This is stable in dev.
Yeah, and I'd probably add to some of that as well, that sometimes we saw in some of the rigor tools that we set up a simulation, and you're absolutely right that it is only showing you what happened in that simulation. It's not doing what the field data is showing you about that 28-day measure that's aggregate. But it is giving you a point in time. I think you need to use both together, certainly. The advantage of using the stuff that's in Lighthouse, it's absolutely free. So yeah, get it used. It is real data on that. But I think the lab data comes in either simulating it manually or adding those different device types. If you're looking for a particular scenario, a particular issue, what type of phone do you want to look at? You've got an issue in one phone versus another. You can then sort of add those simulations, same as you'd probably do in a lot of other performance tests to do that. Any other questions coming in today?
Yeah, we've got a couple, mate. So I'm just trying to stay on mute because the dog's howling at a delivery man.
Isn't that always the way?
Working from home, mate. We've all got these issues. Well, not myself.
So
actually,
we did have a
dog,
couple from. I know James sent in a couple. What are the key metrics you see that provide a good guide to site speed? So I'm hoping that we looked at the Lighthouse and the Core Web Vitals and really explained that in the text.
Definitely covered that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what role do you think Core Web Vitals play? I think, as we said earlier, it's significant. It's really adding that. It's moving away from that load testing server-side only skill to score, to giving you that user experience that we've often ignored in traditional performance testing, if I'm honest.
Definitely.
But we can't really do that anymore.
Yeah, and like we say, for me, it's going to impact your SEO as well. So it's a double whammy.
Good stuff. Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you for joining, everybody. Really hope it was useful. We've scratched the surface a little bit. I know we can go deeper on that. We will be doing some more deep dives into some of this. So if there are other topics you want to talk about related to this or wider in performance, please send that in. As I said before, we'll make the recording available on our website and on YouTube. And we'll send out some of the links and the other bits and pieces there. So yeah, please get involved. Let us know how the feedback on that. We'd love to keep the conversation going. But if there's nothing else, thank you very much for attending today, and we'll give you back a little bit of your time and enjoy the rest of the day.
Great stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Until next time.